Listen, there are a lot of podcasts about the Black church in the vein of Larry Reed and King Jives.
Yikes.
But if you're looking for a podcast about the Black church that's thoughtful, informative, substantive, stimulating, then you need to subscribe to Black Church Chats. That's right. I need you to hit that subscribe button and then also hit the notification bell so that you'll know every time we go live. All right, on to the show. What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody? Happy Monday to you all. Hope you guys are having a wonderful Monday. Good to see y'all. I see my friend, my brother, Damian Law already. He's also a member of this channel. He's already chiming in from Oaktown. Good to see you, Damian. I pray that you are well. Listen, guys, I don't normally come to you on a Monday, but I'm here because some schedule changes are afoot. My lovely, gorgeous, beautiful wife just got a brand new job. So shout out to my wife, Lady Lauren. She just got a brand new job. Her job, her new job and her new job schedule is going to require me to kind of shuffle some things, schedule some things, change some things schedule-wise. And so I'm coming at you today on a Monday, and I'm going to try to go live again this week. But we'll see. And then going forward, y'all, I'm gonna have to play it by ear. Okay. I am going to continue to go live, but with my wife's schedule and with my schedule and with our obligation to the house and kids. I don't necessarily know what days I'll be able to go live, but my promise is at least once a week, I am going to go live. And I see my cousin on here. What's up, cousin? Good to see you. Salute to you, cousin, all the way in Kentucky. What's up, man? Glad to have you on. Glad to have you on. Yes. So listen, if you are not subscribed to this channel, please, sir, please, ma'am, subscribe to the channel. I want you to be a part of this growing and vibrant community. Hey, my aunties are here. Auntie Melissa, Auntie Millicent, love y'all so much. Faithful, man. They're gonna be here regardless. And I'm so grateful for my aunties. But if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe now. Don't just be a looky-loo. Listen, if I showed you the channel analytics, you would be shocked at how many people just kind of watch and they don't subscribe. Honestly, it's sad. We can do better, y'all. So if you're not subscribed, it doesn't cost you a thing. Subscribe to the channel. And if you are subscribed, consider becoming a member of this channel. We have two levels of membership. There's the pew level and the pulpit level. And I would love for you to become a member if you are so inclined. All right, let's get into the conversation. And this conversation is gonna be a little bit different. Hopefully you'll find it interesting. This conversation was actually proposed by my friend and brother, Pastor Keaton Brown, who pastors the Mount Tabor Missionary Baptist Church in Tampa, Florida. And he suggested this particular topic. And y'all, when he suggested, I was like, yeah, that's right up my alley. He said, hey, you should talk about what Richard Allen would think if we were able to dig him up, inject him with some type of serum that allows his body to be reconstituted and brings him back to life. What would he think of the Black church today? And I thought that was a pretty interesting topic because, y'all, listen, that's kind of how my mind works anyway. I'm a huge Disney fan. This is something that many people don't know about me. I'm a huge Disney fan. Not so much Disney of today, but like definitely 80s, 90s, loved Disney. And I often think to myself, like, what would Walt think about Disneyland if he was alive today? And you can go on down the line. If Steve Jobs still alive today, what would he think about Apple? Now, there's only one correction. Walt Disney founded Disneyland, created Disneyland and the Disney brand. Steve Jobs, same thing with Apple. However, Richard Allen, we cannot say that he created the Black church, this institution we commonly refer to as the Black church. That would actually be a historical misnomer, because in all actuality, the Black church precedes and predates Reverend Richard Allen. So we can't honestly say that he created the institution, but we can say with confidence that he's, of course, a looming and large historical figure within the institution. We can also say that he certainly did bring the Black church out of the shadows into the public view. So as far as the visible independent Black church is concerned, Richard Allen certainly is the founder of that. And we can absolutely look to Richard Allen as a patriarch in the faith and in sort of the Black church pantheon, if you will. Now, some of you guys are listening like, Richard Allen, who in the world is Richard Allen, and why should I care? Why should I care about Richard Allen? And if that's where you are right now and you're like completely lost, I get it. I understand. I want to commend to you two resources, and I'm drawing a lot of what I'm going to talk about today from these two resources. One resource is available to you right now for free. So after this, if you are unaware of who Reverend Richard Allen is and his legacy, the resource I'm about to tell you about now, you can actually Google and read after this broadcast is over. But his autobiography, and the title of his autobiography is extremely long. You know, back then, book titles, particularly biography, autobiography titles, were really, really long back in the 18th century. So the title of it is long, but if you Google Reverend Richard Allen's autobiography, you can find it. You can find a PDF copy. It's there. It's available. You don't have to pay for it. And so I encourage you to read in his own words the life and experiences of the Reverend Richard Allen. In that particular autobiography, he talks about his time as an enslaved person. He talks about the experience that led to the founding of the first independent Black church in the North. He talks about the yellow fever outbreak that happens in the city of Philadelphia in the late 1700s. He talks about all of that. And then there's also a classic work that I want to commend to you. This book is called Freedom's Prophet, written by Richard Newman. And this is a classic work, New York University Press. This text will give you a lot of insight and information into Reverend Allen, the African Methodist Episcopal Church and denomination. And it also talks about Absalom Jones and others as well. So for those of you new to this conversation, you are unfamiliar with the Reverend Richard Allen, let me explain. He is thought to be the founder of the first independent Black church in the North, in Philadelphia, known as Mother Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church, and subsequently the first independent Black denomination, the African Methodist Episcopal denomination. And so many point to him as one of the fathers of the black church. He has a very interesting story, a very interesting background that you should make yourself aware of. If you care about this institution, if you consider yourself to be a black church aficionado, he's definitely somebody that you need to learn about, that you want to read about, and that you want to come to know and understand. And so today in particular, I'm just going to imagine what the Reverend Richard Allen, the first bishop of the African Methodist Episcopal denomination, what he would think if he was able to come alive today and live for a few months. What would he think? What would he write? What would he say about today's black church? And again, I'm using those two texts as kind of a way to navigate through this conversation, his autobiography and the book Freedom's Prophet. And I jotted down 10 things that I think Richard Allen would say. And by the way, if you're watching, subscribe. And I always say this, I like my podcast like I like my preaching. All right, y'all talk back to me. Y'all let me know that you're here. Hit up the comment section. I would love to see who's on. I would love to know who's on. So y'all talk back to me. So shout out to my brother Damien who chimed in. Shout out to my aunties who chimed in. Shout out to my cousin Steve who chimed in. Y'all listen. Y'all don't be so silent. All right. Shout out to Carla who's here. Hey, Sister Carla, God bless you. God bless you, Sister Carla. Appreciate you. All right, so I wrote down 10 things that I think Reverend Richard Allen would say about today's black church. Now, let me qualify this conversation. I know that the black church is not monolithic. I know that the black church is multifaceted. I know that there's a lot of variety and distinction within the black church. I get it. Okay, I get it. I understand. This is an exercise in imagination. I am thinking about Reverend Richard Allen being alive today in the 21st century, surveying the scene, looking at black mega churches, looking at black churches in rural America, reading books like The Contemporary Black Church by, I forget the scholar's name that wrote The Contemporary Black Church, but the recent book that just came out, maybe even reading Black Church Empowered, the book that I wrote, right? And I'm thinking about what Reverend Richard Allen would have to say about all of that after surveying all of that. What's up, most excellent Theophilus? Salute and shalom to you as well. So again, I wrote down 10 things that I think he would say. So let's get into it. So number one, I think that Richard Allen would look at the landscape. He would look at how black churches are moving today. And number one, I think he would say to us, do not forget why the black church exists. I know there are a lot of people out there that try to downplay racism, white supremacy. There are a lot of people out there that try to treat these things like they don't exist. They attack you when you talk about it. They call you a race hustler or race baiter, all types of things. All right. All of that is intended to get our eyes off the ball and to treat these sinful attitudes as if they don't exist in the 21st century. And I think Richard Allen would say to black churches today and black pastors today, don't forget that the black church was born in resistance and defense Lord Jesus. I'm having some technical difficulties already, y'all. Lord Jesus. I think that Reverend Richard Allen will be appalled by black pastors who pastor black churches, who treat racism as if it's not a problem, as if it doesn't exist, as if it's not real, as if it's some type of liberal woke ruse, and or they treat blackness, right, the fact that they pastor a predominantly black flock, they treat that as like incidental, peripheral. Doesn't really matter that these people are black. Doesn't really matter that I'm shepherding black bodies. Who cares? I think that Reverend Richard Allen would say, wait, hold up. You mean to tell me that you guys are moving like the sin that necessitated the existence of the black church in the first place is somehow over with, is somehow now has been expelled from the world because we had a black president? You think that sin that caused us to walk out of St. George's is now somehow like evaporated because of Martin Luther King? I think he would have a stern rebuke for that type of attitude. And then he would say, wait, hold up. You mean to tell me that you care nothing about black dignity, and you care nothing about dignifying the black bodies that you shepherd, that you pastor, particularly within this climate? White supremacy is resurgent. President that talks about the bad, quote unquote, genetics of those in the Middle East. Blackness under assault. And you, pastor, you've been entrusted with shepherding black bodies. You have no type of awareness or desire to dignify these black bodies and to help them to be affirming of their own blackness and their own identity as black people in America. I think Richard Allen will be like, whoa, what's up to my friend and brother? Askia, good to see you, Doc. Good to see you. Glad you're here. I think Richard Allen will be like, whoa there. I think that Richard Allen would be troubled wherever churches act as though race, justice, and institutional autonomy are optional side issues. And I think that he would be appalled by black pastors who pastor black people not intentionally leaning into black dignity as an aspect and element of discipleship. Yeah, I heard him say that. I heard our president say that. So yeah, it is crazy. So that's number one. That's the first thing I think that Richard Allen would say. Okay. The second thing I think he would say to us, y'all, listen, keep the gospel plain, powerful, and saving. Plain, powerful, and saving. Because when you read his autobiography, when you read about Richard Allen, you discover that Richard Allen had deep confidence in what he called plain preaching. So he repeatedly describes preaching that awakens souls, preaching that brings people to seek mercy, but also preaching that reaches ordinary people. Now, the AME denomination is known for its educated clergy, right? The AME denomination is known for being a denomination that doesn't stand for jackleg, uneducated preachers. And that's great. But let's not forget that Richard Allen was all about the message of the gospel being conveyed in such a way that the ordinary, formerly enslaved or enslaved person could easily understand it without, having to be catechized for weeks and months. Okay. Richard Allen is famous for saying, the plain and simple gospel suits best, because he was concerned about the unlearned understanding the gospel message. And he knew that if the unlearned could understand it, the learned would certainly understand it as well. And so I think that Richard Allen would applaud Black preaching at its best when it's spiritually alive, when it's gospel-centered. But I also think that he would rebuke churches where preaching has become shallow, performative, empty, an exercise in emotionalism. I think he would really, really, really be upset by Black churches that have reduced the sermonic moment to like an exercise in therapy and motivational speaking only. And I think that Richard Allen would say there should be clarity in the pulpit, there should be spiritual fervor in the pulpit, but not fluff. And I really do think that Richard Allen would have a problem with the fluff, with the vapid, meaningless, performative stuff that passes as preaching in the 21st century. I also think that Richard Allen would have a huge problem with the theological liberalism that is gripped a lot of Black churches and Black pastors. I think that he would say this cancer, and I think he would view it as a cancer. I think he would say this cancer has emptied the gospel of any significance, any depth, any real meaning. And I think that Richard Allen would look at the Black preachers, particularly within the AME denomination, that have embraced this German higher criticism. I think that he would scoff at that. He would have a huge problem with that. You can look in his autobiography, and his autobiography outlines the doctrine that he held to, that his church held to, that the denomination held to. And I think Richard Allen would say, What is this? What is this? What are y'all talking about? What are y'all talking about? I certainly think that he would have an issue with that. I think number three, I think that Richard Allen would say to us that spiritual vitality matters more than status as well. So I think that Richard Allen would be suspicious of any Black church that's far too concerned about optics, far too concerned about being polished, far too concerned about being accepted by society and the broader culture. And I think that Richard Allen would really say to us, like, keep it Jesus. Like let's remember that we want people to come to spiritual life. And all of this flashiness, all of this consumerism, right? All of this stuff is it's a facade, it's a veneer. It's a thin coat of paint that is covering up a rusted vessel, a rusted, busted up, broken vessel. And I think that Richard Allen would ask us to step back, take a deep breath, and say, what really matters? Nothing wrong with being excellent. Nothing wrong with having marketing savvy. But I think that Richard Allen would really, really, really want us to lean into the really pushing for spiritual vibrancy and life versus optics and all of the superficial stuff that comes along with being seeker sensitive or consumer friendly. My sister Carla says, this makes me think about black churches that constantly use props. Yeah, which are a distraction to me, but I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong. You say, I understand it's to illustrate points, but wonder if it's always necessary. Yeah, again, I think that Richard Allen would see all the props and the stunts and the gimmicks, and I think he'd be like, wait a minute, what's going on here? What? So you're telling me that the Bible is not clear enough? What's up? What happened to the perspicuity of Scripture? I think Richard Allen would say, hold up. If you are a good communicator, by the way, every pastor should have the gift of teaching. Pastor, teacher. Every pastor should be and is a teacher. If you're not a teacher, you shouldn't be a pastor. And so I think Richard Allen would say, you mean to tell me that you don't have the ability to effectively teach as a pastor and you need some type of gimmick to help you convey the message? Well, are you really called to pastor? Because if you're called to pastor, you are a teacher. These things go hand in hand. And a teacher is someone that can clearly, cogently convey ideas and thoughts and principles in ways that children can understand. Can you do that without the props? Well, if you can, then the props become irrelevant and unnecessary. And I think Richard Allen will be like, oh, y'all, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? What are we doing here? So I agree with you, Carla. I agree with you. All right. The fourth thing that I think Richard Allen would say to us, the fourth thing that I think he would say to us, I think he would say freedom requires institution building, not just inspiration. I think his challenge would be to black churches today, what institutions are you building? Yes, preach the gospel and make sure the gospel is plain and accessible. But how are you coming together as a coalition of churches to build institutions? This is what Richard Allen did with the Free African Society and with other initiatives that he launched out of the African Methodist Episcopal denomination. I think that Allen would say to all of us that suffering people need more than just a sermon. How are you churches building institutions to help educate people? How are you building institutions to help people economically? How are you building institutions to promote the progress and liberation of black bodies. I think that Richard Allen would look for churches that are erecting schools, financial institutions, nonprofit organizations that actually, produce substantive programs for those within the community. I think that he would say, okay, I love the fact that you guys are having prayer meetings, sermons on point, but how are you building institutions in the 21st century? I think that Richard Allen would want to see black churches today pull our resources together and essentially put our money where our mouth is. We talk all this talk about freedom and political enfranchisement and economic power. I think Richard Allen would look out and say, okay, y'all are talking good, but what are you doing to back up that talk? Okay, so far, the first thing I think he would say, do not forget why the black church exists. Second thing, I think he would say, keep the gospel plain, powerful, and saving. Third thing, I think Richard Allen would say, spiritual vitality matters more than status. Fourth thing, I think he would say, freedom requires institution building and not just inspiration. I think Richard Allen would also say to us, this is the fifth thing that I wrote down, do not surrender black institutions to outside control. Richard Allen, a lot of people think that Richard Allen left St. George's and then he planted Mother Bethel AME without any opposition from the white Methodists. And he just walked off into the sunset after he left St. George's. And no, he was wrapped up in litigation. This litigation went all the way to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court before he was really able to operate independently. He was fought by the white Methodists to he literally won his independence through very deep and difficult court battles. And I think Richard Allen would look out at the churches, the pastors they're so quick to sell land and to give up land that's owned by the churches to corporations, to contractors that may or may not have nefarious purposes. We're so quick to allow outside influences into our churches, and they pull our churches either hard to the right or hard to the left. And before we know it, like, our churches become, well, they become kind of churches in name only. What up, Chris? I think about those pastors because they're so like, and again, I understand that this comes from a good place. We need resources. We absolutely need. If you're a black pastor, you pastor a black church, right? We know that this mega church narrative, like that these mega churches, they're the anomaly. Okay, most black pastors were pastoring churches with 200 members or less, right? We're in urban communities. A lot of our parishioners are socioeconomically challenged. Okay, I get it. I understand that there's a deep desire for resources and money Sorry, y'all. My camera cut out on me. Forgive me. I have a camera that sometimes it just decides that it's too hot or that it's been it's been on too long, and it'll just cut out on me in the middle of the soliloquy. So I digress. Let me back up. I understand the need that we have to fund ministry. Okay, I get it. But sometimes we can be so desirous of resources and money that we go to the wrong sources. And we go to people that actually want some stake. They want some control. And I know that our churches, they're not publicly traded companies. They're not businesses where, somebody can buy a share into our church and become like minority or majority owners. But you'd be surprised at how many pastors sell the birthright for a bowl of stew. Oh, you'll give me how much money? Southern Baptist Convention? Oh, you'll give us how much money? Such and such organization? And before long, these outside agencies are actually pulling the strings. I think that Richard Allen would be wary of any arrangement where Black churches become dependent on, controlled by, muted by, or overly eager for validation from white institutions. I wrote that down because I think that Richard Allen would be appalled by the political control that happens in a lot of Black churches. Or donors. Sometimes we can give the farm away to donors. Hey, if you're a member within the church. Baptist church, if you grew up Baptist, you know about pew rallies. Okay? What about the donor, the member? Says, hey, I got $100,000, but you got to put my name on this and this and this and that. What about celebrities? Problem here in LA, right? Celebrities come in the church, and all of a sudden we cater to the celebrities. So I definitely think Richard Allen would say, do not surrender Black institutions to outside control. Number six. And again, I got 10 of these. I think he would say, that happens every time, y'all. My camera has a mind of its own. And listen, I do want to upgrade my equipment. I pray that I'll be able to do that soon. I look at some of these YouTubers out there and I see, man, y'all set up good. Y'all set up good. I need whatever y'all got, the cameras y'all got, the audio equipment y'all got. I need that. And one day I will get it. One day we will acquire it here. And one day here on Black Church Chats, we'll have a production that rivals that of any of the top YouTubers out there. All right. I think that Richard Allen would say to us, the church must care for the entire community. What's up, JM? Salute to JM. What's going on, man? It's all right, Doc. It's all right. Better late than never, Doc. You're here, whether you're on time, whether you're late, or whether you catch the replay. It's always a joy when you pop in. I think that Richard Allen would say to us, the church needs to care for the entire community, not just its members. I think Richard Allen would say, hey, Black pastor, you pastor a Black church. It's wonderful if you have a vision for your members. What vision do you have for Black people, period? What about the people outside of your doors? They will never come into your church. What vision do you have for them? What's up, Keaton? Man, I'm talking about your topic, Doc. Talking about your topic, man. Good to see you on, Doc. My friend, my brother my friend, my brother, the pastor of the Mount Tabor Missionary Baptist Church in Tampa, Florida. If you are anywhere near Tampa, St. Pete, go and see my brother. Go and see my brother. Yeah, so I think that Richard Allen would say, hey, you have an obligation, not just to your people, but you have an obligation to Black people and to all the people within your community. Remember, Richard Allen is the same guy who, before he plants Mother Bethel, he starts the Free African Society. The Free African Society says, hey, if you're formerly enslaved, we got something for you. We're going to help you. Richard Allen's the same guy during the yellow fever outbreak. He's the same guy that says, no, we're going to help our city. We're going to pitch in, and we're going to ensure that the people within our city are cared for, right? So Richard Allen would say to Black pastors today, like, yes, you have an obligation to your members. You serve your church, and you serve your church well. You love your people, and you love your people well. But do not forget that you are a part of a broader community, and that you owe something not just to your members, but to the broader community that you are a part of. And this has been the legacy of the Black church really since its inception here in this country. Richard Allen displayed it on down the line, all the way to the civil rights movement. It's only as of late that we've embraced this rugged American individualism, and we're like, hey, this is about me, my four, and no more. I got a vision for my people, vision for my members, but beyond that, care less. Care less about what's going on in Black America broadly. Nope. Richard Allen would say, hey, you can't just have answers for your people. You got to have answers for the community as well. And I think he would encourage us in that direction. I also think that Richard Allen, number 7 now, I also think that Richard Allen would say to us, be holy, but not confuse holiness. Do not confuse holiness with passivity. I think Richard Allen would remind the Black church of the both and sort of bridge that is a part of the Black church tradition, right? Piety and public witness, holiness and activism. One doesn't cancel out the other. And we do, even within the Black church, we do have those two strains. Reverend Raphael Warnock wrote the famous book, The Divided Mind of the Black Church, where you have sort of the pietistic holiness, like let's keep our eyes toward heaven crowd. And then you have the like public witness, justice. Let's bring heaven down to earth crowd by advocating and fighting for justice. I think that Richard Allen, he were alive today, I think he would say we can't bifurcate these. This is like, let's not create any artificial dichotomies, because he didn't. When you read his autobiography and the book Freedom's Prophet, Richard Allen was a man of God. He believed in holiness. He believed in righteousness. He believed in no compromise. He was piety and religious fervor and moral rectitude. All of these things, right? That's why if you're a holiness Pentecostal, right, you would love Richard Allen. By the way, if you're a holiness Pentecostal, you find your roots in sort of the Wesleyan Methodist tradition. And Richard Allen was a Methodist. So Richard Allen would have some of those tendencies as well, as he aligned himself with John and Charles Wesley and Wesleyan Methodism. As a matter of fact, historical nugget. Absalom Jones and Richard Allen had a dispute after they leave St. George's Methodist Episcopal Church. Absalom Jones is like, hey, Church of England, the Episcopal Church, we can find a home there, and we could be rid of this Methodism. We could wipe our hands completely of this denomination and find a happy home within the Episcopal denomination. Richard Allen said nope. Richard Allen felt like the only denomination for black folks is the Methodist denomination. So Richard Allen was very ardently Methodist, passionately Methodist. But I digress. Richard Allen, holiness, all that stuff, yes. Righteousness, all that stuff, yes. But don't sacrifice advocacy, fighting for justice on the altar of holiness and righteousness. The two must live together. As a matter of fact, the most holy and righteous people fight for public righteousness and public holiness. The holiness, an outworking of true biblical holiness, is a hatred of injustice and public unrighteousness. So Richard Allen certainly would help us in that area. I also think number 8, Richard Allen would say, hey, remember the poor. I saw a post from I forget the guy's name is, but it was, I disagree with this guy 99.99999% of the time. Christian Smith. You know, Christian Smith is the theologically liberal, quote unquote, pastor. I disagree with him 99.99% of the time. I think that he has drank a lot of the European Enlightenment Kool-Aid, and his theology reflects it. And I think that like he has succumbed to believing the lie that black theology is somehow, y'all know how I feel. Listen, on this channel, I pull no punches about what I call German chocolate theology, right? This idea that true black theology is theology that's rooted in the conclusions and the notions of German scholars. And a lot of what's passed off today as black theology is really European Enlightenment in blackface, but I digress. Christian Smith still posted something that I thought was funny. I agree with him. It was a shot at what he called fundamentalist Christians. Now, of course, he would consider me a fundamentalist Christian. I reject that label, but he would consider me a fundamentalist Christian. But I laughed at this post. He said, fundamentalist Christians, they say take the Bible literally, but when Jesus says, I've come for the poor, fundamentalist Christians turn around and say, oh, he means the spiritually poor. All right. And I thought that was funny because it's kind of true in a lot of ways, right? Where you do have neo-fundamentalists that will see Jesus's words. I came for the oppressed. I came for the poor, right? And they'll say, oh, well, that means spiritually poor, spiritually oppressed, right? They spiritualize it. That Jesus, let's not take that literal, although we do, take the Bible literally everywhere else. I think that Christian Smith calls that out. I think he rightfully calls that out. And I think that Richard Allen would call that out. I think that Richard Allen would say to us, what are you doing specifically for the poor? Even if you are in an affluent neighborhood, even if you don't serve poor members, what are you doing for the poor? I'm going to give you the last two here. We're right at about an hour. And I'm going to give you the last two, and I'm going to wrap it up. Number 9, I think that Richard Allen would say to us, protect unity, but not at the cost of justice. I think that Richard Allen would remind us that he would have stayed at St. George's, and the black delegation would have stayed at St. George's had they been treated as equals. But there was a great injustice. They didn't treat them as equals. And so they left. And it was good that they left. It was godly that they left. And I think that Richard Allen would say to us, protect unity, but not at the cost of injustice, or not at the cost of justice, excuse me. I think Richard Allen would say, you can't unify with a lot of these MAGA churches and white supremacist churches, because to unite with them means to support, and in many cases celebrate, the marginalization, dehumanization of image bearers. To unite with them would mean trampling, as professing Christians, trampling over the lives and rights of people that they disagree with, they don't like, or that they consider are somehow taking over America and replacing them. Because you do understand that uniting with them means uniting with them on their terms. Oh yeah. We'll hang with y'all and affirm y'all as long as y'all drop that quote unquote woke stuff. Y'all know how they label it, right? They label us woke, they label us Marxist. Really, all that stuff is just a ruse to sweep under the rug the obvious. Okay, they celebrate, in some cases, support explicitly or implicitly, the injustice that's happening right now in undeniable and open ways. And we promote unity, Christian unity. We protect Christian unity, but not at the expense of justice. All right. And then I think the last thing that Richard Allen would say to us is that the black church must still be a prophetic place made up of prophetic people. Richard Allen clearly understood that Christianity had social implications. And I think that he will be appalled by black pastors that are just complacent or scared. I think that he most certainly would survey the landscape, hear what they're saying over here in MAGA world. And I think he would look at black pastors and he would say, y'all ain't got nothing to say about that? Wait a minute, hold on. Y'all aren't paying attention. Why aren't y'all paying attention? And I think that he would certainly have an issue. So this was the statement. This was the statement that I wrote. This was a statement that I wrote to wrap this all up and put a nice bow on it, because we're about an hour in, and I'm about to go. My daughter is here, y'all, from Atlanta. She's on spring break. She's at Georgia State University right now, and she's here in LA on spring break. And so I broke away from hanging out with my daughter to hang out with y'all and to have this show. And so as soon as I'm done, I'm going back with my oldest daughter, and we're gonna hang out. But this is what I wrote. If Richard Allen visited today, this would be his summary statement to us. Preach Christ boldly, stay close to the poor, build institutions you control. Don't let the world make you vain. Don't let oppressors define your place. Keep the gospel plain. Keep your courage strong. And never forget that the black church was born because black people refused to worship God without dignity. Y'all want me to say that statement one more, his summary statement one more time? Preach Christ boldly, stay close to the poor, build institutions your people control. Do not let the world make you vain. Do not let oppressors define your place. Keep the gospel plain. Keep your courage strong. Never forget that the black church was born because black people refused to worship God without dignity. You're absolutely right. Silent on the Epstein files too, which is a doggone shame. The level of capitulation that we see out of these so-called churches, just capitulating to corrupt power, it's sick. It's sick and it's disgusting. All right, y'all. I'm gonna head out. I appreciate y'all. I don't know if I'll be able to go live again this week. Again, I said at the front end that my schedule is going to change a little bit. My wife just got a brand new job, praise God. And so our schedule is going to shift a bit in order to maintain the duties and the obligations that I have to my wife and family. I'm going to have to juggle some things around. My plan is to still go live at least once a week. I'd really love to go live at least twice a week, but at least once a week, I still want to go live. I just don't know what day. Today, I'm going live on a Monday. Normally, I don't go live on Mondays, but today I'm going live on a Monday. I'll have to see going forward what day I'll go live. It may be different days during the week, which is not ideal because the best way to grow your audience on YouTube is to have a consistent, dedicated day. And I got that. I understand that. But y'all listen, y'all know I have a family. I'm a pastor, and I'm trying the best I can. I'll try to carve out a dedicated day, but I don't know. But here's my commitment. I will go live at least once a week. I just don't know what day. All right. But I appreciate your viewership. I appreciate your support. Thanks for listening. I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Grace and peace. God bless.